Oh, hey there. You like true crime stories, right? Yeah, I know, who doesn't? But I gotta admit, after a while all those stories of murder and heartache, well, they tend to go straight to my hips. So that's why I, Leroy Luna, have created a podcast called Excuse Me, That's Illegal, where we'll take a hardcore look at some softcore crimes. No TED Talks on Bundy here. The letters BTK won't be coming from these lips. Unless he had a brother that used to steal library books. Suppose I'd be willing to go balls deep into that one if that were the case. Anyways, you'll hear stories such as the Mad Pooper, a female jogger who wreaked havoc in a Colorado Springs neighborhood, using one family's front yard as her own personal dumping grounds. If this kind of content sounds like it's up your alley, Excuse Me, That's Illegal is available right now on all your favorite podcatchers. So come join me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Juan.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? You ready for a crazy case?
Dude, I am. This thing is insane. Happened in the
This is unlike
late
any other
80s.
case we've done. It's different.
It
We've
is.
never done a case like this.
It is, and we don't dabble in a lot of unsolved cases on here. But this one was just great, and I'm excited about the conversation about this because it's so strange that it's got to be one of a couple things, right? And I think we've kind of somewhat narrowed it down. I think if you guys studied this case, you kind of know what we're talking about. But it's going to be a lot of interesting discussion in this one for sure.
But it's one of those ones where the more you study, you think you're like, okay, I got it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
I know what happened. And then you read a little bit more, and you're like, no, maybe I don't. The more you read, almost the more perplexed you are.
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
There's a lot of mystery to it, no doubt. Well, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, we don't want to give away too much with this one. Let's go on the journey here. So let's hear your intro and get into it.
All right.
Whoever you are, you sure caused a lot of crying. Always close, never far. My paranoia climbing. Cloud over me every day. They don't believe a word I say. Will it ever end now? I don't ever sit back now. Make them see somehow. How much longer can I fight? Cloud over me every day. They don't believe a word I say. There's telephone lines, someone's outside. He's stalking me. Can't call the police. Please listen to me. Losing my sanity. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Oh, baby, right on. In his telephone line, someone's outside.
right, our case this week, as you mentioned, heads up. I know some people like to be warned whether a case is solved or unsolved. This is technically unsolved. This case is it's perplexing. A woman dies. She had been being tormented for 7 years prior, and upwards of 100 calls to police and reports of this person being harassed, being assaulted, and finally she perishes in a suspicious manner. And there's a lot of questions surrounding her mental health. Was she doing a lot of this, or was there actually a person or persons tormenting her?
Right.
Was it possibly an ex-husband, someone she worked with who had been doing this? But
Right, and who would have the expertise to do this for so long and not get caught? Not even a glimpse, not even a suspect.
yeah,
That's what's so strange.
there was a
about
few
this
times
case.
where her husband was, seen lurking around her home by police, and his whole story was that he was there to protect her from the people that have been tormenting her.
Oh,
Which,
okay.
reminds you of the movie Scream. It's like
Yes,
the
it
boyfriend
does.
was acting as though he was there to protect her, and meanwhile he was the guy that was doing it.
Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and he has motive, and this didn't happen until right after she gets divorced is when it starts. But
Yep.
then again, that is someone who would be preyed on. A middle-aged woman, a pretty woman who's living alone, recently divorced. I mean, it does make sense that someone would target her, but why? It's just the timing, right? The timing
Yeah.
is so weird. That's what makes you kind of lean towards the husband. It's like, really? Right after you divorced, this stuff started happening?
And the
Strange.
convenience of every time she was attacked, she was alone, even though she had people around her a lot. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, when it had gotten so out of hand, the police started to survey her home, to watch over her home. And every time they were there, watching over for, let's say there was a 2-week span where they were 24-hour surveillance over her, nothing would happen in that 2-week span.
But then again, I mean, are they sitting on the
conveniently.
street corner with cop cars? Because that's the way I gathered it. And if that's the case, who's going to show up, though?
Right.
Who's going to show up when you...
That's the thing about this case is every time you present something like, well, look at this, you're like, well, what about
this?
that?
Yeah.
That's the
And
thing
you
about
know
this
damn
case.
well I'm going to be here to do that shit.
Right, exactly. That's your job, man.
That's not just...
So the case we're doing this week is a woman named Cindy James, who we're going to start with her death. We've already alluded to the fact that she died under
Right.
suspicious circumstances. We'll start with how she was discovered, and then we'll work our way back from there.
Sounds good.
So on June 8th, 1989, the quiet Vancouver, British Columbia suburb of Richmond was shocked when a body was found lying in the yard of an abandoned house. The victim would be 44-year-old pediatric mental health nurse Cindy James, a very well-respected woman in her community.
Yes.
Had been working with children, helping them with mental health issues. That was her passion. And like I said, very well-respected. Had been doing that for a very long time, 15-plus years. She'd been doing that job and
Right.
was loved by her community. A road maintenance worker found her body near an abandoned house on Blundell Road, roughly 1 mile from where her car was parked. She'd been missing for 2 weeks by the time her body was found. She was lying on her side on the ground, fully clothed, with hands and feet behind her back. There was a needle mark in one arm, and an autopsy revealed that she had died from an overdose of morphine and other drugs. However, she had that prick mark from a needle, which would become a common theme through this case, you'll see. But that no needle was found at the scene, which led a lot of people to believe that she couldn't have done this herself.
Right.
Because where would if she had done it herself, the needle would be nearby. They
Hold
would be found somewhere between her and the car that she had walked away from.
Right. So there were marks on her arm from the needle.
Yes.
Okay, because in the things that I read, the articles I read, and I also watched an Unsolved Documentaries series on this, or an episode on this rather. It's from '91, so it's pretty old, but it is more current to when this
But
case
that was
happened.
fresh. That was very fresh to the time
Right.
that she had been found. So.
But here's the thing, right? So they mention the morphine and all that stuff and being drugged, but they never mention whether or not there were any evidence on her arms that she was ever actually stabbed. Because that's the whole thing, right? If she was absolutely injected, then where's the needle? And now they say
But
it takes 15
another thing
minutes.
that's weird too, though, is that she had the autopsy revealed that she had ingested the pills. That the drugs that she was under were not from the injection. She had consumed the pills, so they were in her stomach.
Okay, so she consumed morphine pills.
Yes.
Correct. But there
Along
was
with
still,
other drugs.
But there was still a puncture mark in her arm.
Yes, but like I said, that was a common theme. she would be found many times near death with a nylon stocking around her neck with a needle mark in her arm. This would be something that would occur over and over in the prior 7 years before she was found dead.
Right. And she was never sexually assaulted, right?
There was an occurrence where she had said that she had a vague memory of being assaulted with a knife that had been inserted in her. But I don't know if there was actual evidence of that or if that was just her recollection after being drugged.
Okay.
She had these blurry memories of being attacked over and over again, and she would just get little details of being in a van or a person standing over her,
Right.
quotes that they had said.
Right.
We'll get through all that. But as for her being found on June 8th, 1989, a black nylon stocking was tied around her neck. Once again, another common theme to her prior attacks. Yet the autopsy revealed that she had died from the overdose from the morphine and the other drugs. Police would conclude initially that she had committed suicide, which is crazy to think because she was found basically hogtied with her hands and feet behind her back.
Right.
So to think that she had done this to herself is pretty shocking revelation to a community to say, this woman's found in an abandoned yard with her hands and feet tied behind her and a needle mark in her, and yet she committed suicide is what the police are saying. But the police had a lot more info into Cindy James, and they had been dealing with her for a very long time. So
Right.
they were skeptical, to say the least,
No doubt.
whether it was right or wrong.
And she would have time. They concluded in an investigation that after taking these pills, she would have had roughly 15 minutes before she's out. And to tie herself up, that's kind of a lot of time. And
And
she
a policeman actually recreated the scenario of tying yourself up the way she did and was able to do it within 3 minutes.
So there you go.
And it's also important to note that her hands and her feet tied together, they were in a very loose fashion. Like she could have slipped, apparently she could have slipped right out of them if she was so inclined.
Right. Well, then again, though, if someone drugged you and then tied you and you're unconscious, they wouldn't be worrying about tying them very tight either.
Yeah.
To be
That's
fair.
once again, there's always another side to the argument on this case, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always like a but in this case,
Yeah.
which makes it
Yeah.
so interesting.
We'll call this but. This whole damn case is.
Right. Yep. So the coroner would rule that her death was not suicide, an accident, or a murder. They determined that she died of an unknown event. So there was like a hearing of jurors that were experts in these to determine her death. What was the fashion of it? Was it a murder? Whatever. And they basically settled on unknown because there was like one juror member that was not convinced that she had killed herself. And so it was just enough to like tip the scale, and let's just list this as unknown.
Okay, but what was the actual cause? Was it the drugs or asphyxiation?
Yes, the drugs were the cause of her death, but
Okay.
they were unable to conclude whether she had been forced to take these drugs.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So Cindy's parents, of course, never doubted that their daughter had been murdered. Otto, her father, believed that the police did not investigate the possibility of a homicide or somebody murdering her. Instead, they zeroed in on trying to prove that she had committed suicide. They believed someone in Vancouver was getting away with murder. The police, who'd never dusted for prints or thoroughly searched for evidence in her home after the many incidents that she had reported in the past, they said that James had made it all up, that being Cindy. So over the 7 years before her death, Cindy had filed over 90 complaints with the police. She claimed she had been targeted, harassed, and assaulted by a man and possibly others. All of these we were going to go throughout this case. However, after her death, one doctor theorized that she had multiple personalities, and one of Cindy's split personalities murdered the other.
Yikes.
There's no doubt that near the end of her life, she was struggling with some
Well,
severe mental issues.
but-
There's
Yeah, for real.
so much
I
to
know.
prove, so much to point in that.
Regardless if that was brought on by her and her life circumstances, the way her life was going,
Right.
or if it was brought on by someone actually harassing her at first.
We discussed this before we started recording.
It's so-
we made that mistake of started talking about the case before we actually hit record.
Rookie mistake, right? Yeah.
But we were discussing how she seemed to be a very well put together individual for most of her life. She was a well respected nurse working in a hospital, was in a long marriage with a person, and like no signs of any issues. And then all of a sudden, it leads you to believe that someone was harassing her and drove her crazy, if you will.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny how her husband, like, once they divorce, is just not in the picture anymore. It's like no mention of him, really, hardly, other than what he was around her house maybe once or twice. I don't even know his name.
They'd been still kind of going on dates and stuff for a while afterwards until
okay.
these events got more serious, and then she started to blame him, saying that he was the one that was harassing her, and then their relationship was forever severed at that point. But after their divorce, they were pretty amicable, and they were still going out on dinner dates every now and then. We'll talk about all that. But
So why would
let's
she
start with Cindy's birth. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, why would she blame him for that for no reason? You know, that seems odd. Maybe she thought he was trying to play a game where she would want him back with her for protection. Maybe she felt maybe he was trying to scare her into not living alone anymore, and then maybe the easiest thing to do would be to come back to him. You know what I mean? Like, what is his motive here? And if she started accusing him first...
She had her reasons. She believed that she had witnessed something on the boat. He had a boat, a catamaran that he would go sailing with. We'll talk about something she had witnessed. So, basically her theory, she started having these recollections of things that she had kind of blocked out of her psyche. And when she was getting psychic treatment, she was getting these memories coming back to her of violent things that he had done to her in the past, that she had witnessed him do to other people in the past. And that's why she started to begin to believe that it was him that had done this.
Maybe she forgot about some of these things because she was drugged.
Yes, that's her theory as well.
Interesting.
We'll get into all that. But let's start with Cindy as a baby. She was born in Oliver, Canada in 1944. She was the oldest of 6 kids, and her father was in the Air Force and was a stern disciplinary within the household, and a bit old school, her being born in the 40s. Her father had treated her daughter differently than his sons.
Right.
She was not allowed to go to college, although his sons were encouraged to go to college, and her father ultimately allowed her to go to nursing school, and that's why she went into that career path. But at the age of 6, she began to experience nightmares, which would continue into adulthood, often causing her to wake screaming. She had some trauma that had occurred to her, when she was young, and I think that has a lot to do with this case as well. Her brother apparently molested her when she was younger. I don't know how frequently, but I think that may have something to do with these nightmares that she began experiencing at a young age as well. Some bad stuff seems to have happened to Cindy when she was young.
Right.
She feared dark places, especially basements when she was younger, which isn't out of the norm, but it's kind of weird, the treatment that she was given. She was forced to eat in the dark basement oftentimes in her own home because apparently there was a lack of space at the dinner table for her. So they would send her to the dark basement to eat alone, which is just like, that crazy.
Seems absurd. That seems absurd.
Right?
Like, why wouldn't you just let her eat in the living room?
Like, there's got to be a better place she could eat. If the dinner table's full, can't she go in the living room and eat, or like go out, sit on the front porch and eat? Like,
there's always room at the table, man. You can scoot over. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Especially for
That's
your
what
kids.
I'm saying, dude.
We
We don't have the biggest table, but we cram in.
Oh yeah, I got a family of 5 sitting around a table that probably most people wouldn't put 4 at. I mean, it can happen. It can happen. It's just no reason to. This seems like a punishment. You know, maybe she complained about her food, and they were like, "All right, well, you can go eat in the dark then."
Yeah.
You know, this just doesn't seem like, oh, we don't have space. Go down to the basement. Like, y'all ain't got a living room or some shit. She could sit and eat at the couch or something. There's just more to this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That just seems odd.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, she would also later come out to her husband many years later with an admission that she had been sexually assaulted by one of her brothers. And she was a very private person.
Yeah.
That's something about Cindy as well that everybody remarked at, was that she would keep a lot of stuff to herself. A lot of trauma. She would just try to move past it and not deal with it.
Right.
But it would come out in one way or another eventually.
That type of trauma is always going to surface, and it's nice if you have somebody you can get that off your chest to. You know what I mean? If you had someone that experienced it with you, obviously that's not good for them, but it's someone that you can work through it with. You know, maybe another sibling. But I think she just had brothers, right? Was she the only daughter?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not
but
sure.
Either
There's
way,
not a ton about her childhood out there.
Right. But either way, that's definitely something you would want to tell your significant other, someone you trust, someone that you're spending your life with, you know?
Actually, I know for a fact she had at least one sister because she had a sister write a book about her later on after her
there
death.
you go. There you go. Geez, somebody. How did she feel about it? Did she believe her sister?
I think she believed her sister was targeted and murdered.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So in 1963, Cindy met a resident doctor after she had gone through nursing school. She was doing a residency, and she had met a resident doctor, and the two were getting serious when another traumatic thing happened to Cindy. His life was cut short in a car accident. Right after she had met this guy, they started to fall in love, and he dies in a car accident.
No.
And this really affects her, obviously. 2 years later, she would meet Dr. Roy Makepeace while working together at Vancouver General Hospital in the fall of 1965. They formed a bond and would soon start dating, and she was 18 years younger than him. She was 19 and he was 37. He was married with 2 children.
Oh, my.
When they met and started dating. And soon he would leave his wife in December of 1966. He would leave his wife and his 2 kids to marry Cindy. She would be 22 when they would get married. So they were dating for several years by the time that they would get married.
Wow. Yeah, I guess in secret for a little while, maybe? Yeah. Or yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm sure he was keeping it under wraps for a while.
Yeah, because they didn't. He didn't leave his wife till 1966, and they met in 65. So they at least dated for almost a year, probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they had a great relationship early on. In 1974, Cindy would land her dream job working with children as a pediatric mental health nurse in British Columbia. And this was everything she always wanted to do, was work with young kids.
Right.
She was described as gentle and kind, but firm when she needed to be. Meanwhile, her husband failed at the exam. So when they moved to British Columbia, he had left being a psychiatric doctor, and when they moved there, he tried to go into the same line of field, except he kept failing the psychiatric medicine tests there in British Columbia. He failed 3 times and was barred from testing anymore. So he couldn't do what he had done before. This bothered him. It left him depressed, irritable, and angry, and he went to work as the head of medical services for British Columbia's hydroelectric utility company, just to
there you go.
Make a paycheck.
That's probably good because, I mean, I wouldn't want a psychiatric doctor that passed the test on the 3rd time anyway. It's like, bro, I don't know. I know you got a diploma and everything, and I know the old omen. You know what they call a doctor that graduated last in his class? A doctor. Yeah, I know. I get it, but maybe it wasn't for this guy, Maybe
right.
That's not a field that you just want to barely scrape by. Psychiatric medicine. He's going to have a lot of control over medications, and maybe that gives some insight into this case as well.
Yeah, Cindy got her hands on a lot of medications that she maybe shouldn't have been able to have access to.
Right.
Like a lot. So in 1977, Dr. Makepeace bought a 30-foot catamaran sailboat that he named the Peacemaker.
Of course.
A nice play on his last name there.
Yeah, really.
Cindy was deathly afraid of water and would stay under the deck with her dog while on the boat. So they would go on these sailing expeditions, and he was essentially holding her hostage during these because she was deathly afraid of sailing, but it was the thing he loved to do, and this would drive a wedge in their relationship, as they couldn't come to terms with each other's passions. The couple's lack of interest in each other's interests drove a wedge between them. Cindy loved to be at home, on land, gardening. Gardening was her favorite thing to do.
Where humans belong. No,
Yeah.
We don't have gills. What are we doing? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. This ain't Waterworld.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this wedge that would be driven between them would eventually result in them separating in July of 1982. They would separate after 16 years of marriage. But it was pretty cool and amicable early on. They would still go to the theater together. They were still go on the occasional dinner date as well, or go to the symphony. There's a couple things that they actually did have common interest in, which was like theater and symphony.
Yeah.
So they would go out and enjoy these things every now and then together. Roy stayed in the home that they had lived in together, while Cindy rented a place in East Vancouver closer to her work. And a few months would go by after their amicable separation before Cindy would start to get harassed and tormented, and this would go on for the next 7 years. So 3 to 4 months after her separation, she's living alone. She would start to begin receiving frequent calls, which at first were just hang-ups, but then they soon progressed to threats from an eerie voice that would whisper. There's actually audio of these voice messages that would be left on answering machines. It reminds me a little bit of like the weepy voice killer.
I was about to say, yeah, that's what I thought too.
It's someone trying to sound as creepy as possible in like a raspy, whispery voice.
Where you can barely make out what they're saying.
I'm sure you'll put this in the intro. You've probably already heard this voice if you're listening to this now.
Yeah.
You definitely got to put that in there.
All right.
So on October 12th of 1982, Cindy closed all the curtains in her condo and received a call saying, "Don't think pulling the drapes means I don't know you're in there." Another call the same day, "You're dead, Cindy." So this is really, obviously, scary stuff. A woman living alone and getting
and these
all
calls,
these calls. Very much like Scream yet again.
And these calls exist, right? These calls are, this is some hard evidence here that she was
There's
being
evidence of
harassed
this.
by
Even
somebody.
Roy Makepeace, her ex-husband, would eventually start getting calls and have voice messages, and that's how we got the audio was from his voice message machine from the same caller.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. But she doesn't have any other like scarred lovers at this time, right? As far
Not
as
that I'm aware of.
right.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that we're aware of, right? But she was with a married man for a year, so she obviously didn't have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's their business. I'm not saying right or wrong or whatever.
What if it was the ex-wife, man?
Hey.
Roy's ex-wife coming back to... then again, I mean, Roy and Cindy were married for 16 years or whatever before she started getting tormented. So I doubt the Roy's ex-wife was still holding a grudge after all that time.
Yeah, I think
I doubt she would wait until they would break up as well before she would start tormenting her.
man, it's probably somebody that just found her, that just noticed her living alone. Maybe they were at the hospital or around the hospital or lived in her neighborhood and they were just obsessed with her or something. Because a lot of
there was a point in this story where she's living in a condo and one of the neighbors, who was also a female, was also getting harassing phone calls as well.
Uh-huh.
So there's other witnesses around that witnessing men in their 30s outside of Cindy's apartment acting strange. There's things like this that lead you to believe that she wasn't just doing all this to herself,
right,
for attention or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There are witnesses that corroborate some of her stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to dismiss it.
Yeah.
It really is, especially with the audio.
Yeah. So around that same time, October 12th, 1982, Cindy and Roy had gone on one of those dinner dates, and Cindy returned home to her home and found a pillow slashed that was stuffed underneath her comforter. So she finds a pillow under her comforter, and it's got slash marks going down it, very precise cuts. She would call the police, and a constable named Pat McBride would respond, but couldn't find anything out of place. Roy showed up and took the pillow with him when he left. That's a thing that's in the tick in the side of potentially Cindy doing some of this herself, is that she would always dispose of the evidence in these cases. Like she would call Roy and say, someone broke my security lights outside, and the shattered bulbs would be found, and he would say, you should give these to the police because they could have fingerprints or whatever on them, and she would say, no, get rid of it. Just like the pillow, she gave the pillow that was cut that she'd been found in her bedroom to Roy to get rid of.
So he didn't take it on his own accord?
If this person caught, you would want to present this evidence to police. It could help track this perpetrator down, but she would always get rid of this evidence.
So Roy didn't take the pillow on his own accord, though?
No, she asked him to, and he disposed of it.
Now that changes everything.
Yeah. Well, that's his story, at least.
Oh, his story. So if he did take it on his own accord, why would he say he did?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So
if he was involved, possibly, wouldn't you also want to get rid of all this evidence? And he's always the one around to dispose of it?
And you would say she told you to?
Right. That's damn convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also kind of makes her look a little bit out there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So 4 days later, Constable McBride returned to Cindy's with deadbolts for all her doors. He and Cindy became friends, and Cindy offered him a room for rent because he was going through a separation with his wife, and he needed a place to stay while he could find his own new place.
Right.
And so this was it worked for both of them. He needed a place to stay, and she would like the extra protection since she's being, harassed all the time by somebody.
Right.
And things would calm down for a while McBride stayed with her. He moved in with her on November 1st, 1982, and they started seeing each other romantically and would even double date with Cindy's ex, Roy Makepeace, and whatever girl he was dating.
Uh-huh.
November 22nd, 1982, while at work, Cindy found a note on her windshield with a picture of a woman that looked a lot like her with its eyes scratched out.
Ooh.
So now this person, she's got protection at home, so this person's turning to her workplace to torment her further.
Right.
Then on November 28th, 1982, Cindy's phone lines were cut in 5 places.
5
Neighbors
places?
in the condo below. Yeah, right? That's really overboard, it seems
Yeah.
like.
It's like one, it's just one line that feeds all those. You could just cut one.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 places. Really trying
Yeah.
to put her out of business.
Yeah, and she was in a multi-level condo, and there was people that lived below her that did not have their lines cut. It was only hers. It was specifically targeting Cindy.
Wait, was
The
it
neighbor-
inside her apartment, the cuts? They had to been, right?
I think it was on the outside of the building, I would imagine. And there was probably lines that went up to hers on the second floor, and then lines that stayed on the bottom floor. This is just what I'm imagining.
Yeah. Interesting. A lot of questions about that, because if it was like the lines coming out of the wall, going to the phones and all the lines were cut,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Coming out of the wall
Then that would
inside.
make sense. 5 places.
Yeah, then it would make, exactly. It makes sense because you have different phone hookups all through your house, and they just cut them all.
Yeah. So this one is one of those that is in the tick of, she was actually being harassed by someone. A neighbor 2 doors down on this incident where her lines were cut reported getting harassing phone calls around that same time. Another neighbor reported seeing a strange man lurking around Cindy's house 3 separate times. So these neighbors have nothing to gain from saying that they witnessed these things as well,
Right. But
So
you
it just
don't
makes
know.
you think.
But you don't know if these people were lurking around to see Cindy or not. I mean, she does live in an apartment complex.
Yeah, there's always people wandering around,
condo
and apartment complexes.
Exactly. Other people are getting harassing phone calls as well. So maybe that person, these suspicious people weren't even there to see her.
And what if it was Cindy making those calls as well? Because she would have something to gain from proving that it wasn't just her that was getting harassed, that there was someone harassing women her age around this time.
Yes, you are
Once
correct.
again, there's always another side you can look at
There's always another
it.
side.
2 sides to the coin.
That's right. We're going to flip this coin a lot, y'all. Hang on.
Yeah. So in early December 1982, Constable Pat McBride moved out of Cindy's house, so he must have been able to find his own place, and they would continue to date, and he kept keys to her house. Also in December of 1982, police saw Roy, her ex-husband, circling her house. He pulled behind her house into an alley and turned his lights off when the police confronted him. He said that he was there to protect his wife, Cindy, and they told him to move on. That one, man, I just can't get past that one. Like,
Can't
that's
get
some
past
odd
that.
behavior.
Very.
And then there was also that same month, December 1982, Cindy claims that she heard a tapping on her bedroom window. Terrified, she ripped the curtains open to find Roy standing there holding a knife and a rifle. And he told her that he was there to protect her from whatever. She would be safe as long as he was outside.
Oh, no,
I'm
that's
just like,
okay.
What the fuck, man?
You can go ahead and go.
Yeah.
I feel better if you're not there. Holy shit. A knife and a rifle just standing there, huh?
Yep.
I can't believe nobody else, none of the other neighbors called on his ass.
Yeah, well, what if he's the guy that they kept seeing wandering around?
Yeah, because they probably wouldn't know him. I mean, especially if they're not together.
No. They'd already broken up. They'd lived in a home together. She moves to this place alone. All they know is her living alone. And they see this guy wandering around,
Right.
potentially with a knife and a rifle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and Roy had a theory as to who was doing this to Cindy at this time. He thought that she was being harassed by the mafia. The slash pillow and calls were like the Godfather movies, he said. And maybe Cindy had treated a family member of the mafia badly, supposedly, while she was working at the hospital. It's quite far-fetched.
You mean a child of the... I don't think so.
I
She
guess
was a
the horse head in her
pediatric.
bed that she found would also lead you in that direction.
Yes.
We forgot to mention
absolutely.
that one.
Don't forget about that, bro. Yeah. Horrific scene.
Yeah.
But
The
she
bag
was
that she found on her doorstep with dead fishes and the note that said, "You'll be sleeping with the fishes." You know,
right,
that one.
right.
We
Now
forgot
that
to mention that too.
right now that could tie to the mafia. No, but she worked with kids, man. She worked with kids mostly. I just don't think she had it in her to do some kids wrong, and she was well renowned in her job. I just don't think
She was doing the Lord's work, man, helping kids
Yeah.
with psychological issues. Like
That's
who
what
could
I'm
be mad at
saying.
that?
And she probably felt like she was really giving back because, she probably felt like she needed help with psychological issues as a child with all the shit that she went through. Being molested by her brother, being mistreated, eaten in the dark and shit like that, not feeling like part of your family. So it's pretty obvious that she had a love for this field. I just can't see her.
It makes
being
you
bad
wonder,
at her
did she have a
job.
love for this field because of what she had suffered, the trauma that she'd endured growing up, and knowing how much it can affect you?
Yes.
Wanting to prevent that from affecting other people the way it did her.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think she was driven to be so good in her job and why she was there for so long. I think this is just such a stretch from Roy. It just makes me more suspicious of him now.
Absolutely. And also, does this little snippet, around this time, Roy also allegedly begged Cindy to move back in with him, and she refused, which made him very angry. There's motive right
Yeah,
there. Like,
that's
he's obviously
motive.
not moving on well from this relationship splitting up.
Exactly.
Maybe it was more her that wanted to split up than him. Mm-hmm. And they had been together for a damn long time. And there was a lot of stuff that came out from other witnesses, like her co-workers at the hospital, that said over the years she'd come in a lot of times with bruises, black eyes, and she would lie, but eventually she would come out and say that it had been from Roy striking her.
Oh. Well, this is really adding up here. Mm-hmm. You know, and then all those double dates and shit, I bet Roy was initiating all those. It wasn't so much like, oh, let's do a double date and remain friends. It's more like, let me remain in your life. Let me remain in the picture.
Yes.
Let me keep an eye on you while you're dating these other guys and doing this and that. And it's funny that when she's dating these other guys, you know, he's not around. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not outside the house anymore and all that shit.
Yep.
And it's right after the officer moves out.
Yep.
He's back outside the house again.
Yep.
Yeah, it's too coincidental.
Yep. So then on January 4th, 1983, more disturbing pictures arrive in the mail. And McBride finds a note from the cutout letters on Cindy's lawn. The pictures are of corpses, knives, and of women with their faces scratched out. The letters contain phrases like mangled pulp and dead. So McBride being the constable that had lived with her briefly and was still checking in on her. Just getting more progressively very sadistic and dangerous at this point. Then on January 27th, 1983, Cindy is found. This is where it escalates. It escalates to her now being attacked physically and almost killed. On January 27th, 1983, she would be found by her friend Agnes, unconscious in her garage. She tells police that she had answered a knock at her back door and a man grabbed her. He dragged her into the garage where a second man was waiting. It was dark in the garage, so she couldn't make out their features. One of them slashed her hand with a knife and knotted a black nylon tightly around her neck, causing Cindy to pass out. She had dozens of cuts on her body made by a scalpel or some sort of other sharp instrument on her arms and legs. There were no serious injuries, though. Cindy had vague memories of being raped with a knife. That's where I kind of mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And supposedly the person, when they left her, she vaguely remembers them saying, "It will take a long time to die." So they were supposedly leaving her there, knowing that no one was going to come for a long time, that she would be alone, slowly being strangled by that nylon stocking.
Yeah.
Until she perished.
And she's also tied up, too. So if nothing else, she could die from starvation.
Yeah.
Right? Or dehydration, rather.
Yep. Yeah, so this is escalated now. And now the police are getting more involved, and now they're very suspicious of Roy Makepeace, her ex-husband. On February 1983, David Bauer Smith, the veteran officer in charge of the investigation, believed that Roy Makepeace was terrorizing his ex-wife. Roy, however, had an alibi for that night of the attack. He said that he was at work. Then he went to eat alone at a restaurant following that. And of course, there's not a lot to really corroborate that other than him being at work, but I think this occurred after he would have gotten off work, so possible he could have done this.
Yeah, especially since his alibi is that he was alone afterwards. Anytime somebody's like, "Oh, I was alone at that time doing this," it's like, well, of course
not really
you were.
an alibi, right?
Of course you were.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sus.
David Bauer Smith also believed that Cindy was withholding information, so he arranged for her to take a polygraph exam. Roy, he would ask to take a polygraph test, and Roy would say yes. However, his lawyer would advise against it because he had some sort of medical issue that said he had like hypertension or something, and he said that it would have made it look like he was lying even if he wasn't, supposedly, and Roy got out of taking the polygraph test.
Wow.
Yeah. Cindy would fail the polygraph test twice. She confessed that she recognized one of the two men that attacked her in January, but refused to name for fear that he would go after her family.
And see, and
so
that
she
would
fails when she's asked if she knew who it was that had done this. She said no, and it would prove to be a lie.
So, but if it was someone who was close to her family, someone that knew a lot about her, like say
Roy
someone who was in her life for 16 fucking years, yeah, maybe they have some information that makes you feel helpless. You know
A
what I
lot
mean?
of stuff is adding here up here that makes Roy look guilty right
Yeah,
now,
it
like
does.
a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So in March of 1983, Cindy moved for the third time in less than a year. Around this time, she began seeing a doctor to help her deal mentally with her problems. Dr. Connolly. They became friends more so than a patient and doctor relationship. And Dr. Connolly would continue to prescribe her medications for anxiety as they were more than friends. And so it's kind of breaking that code that you're supposed to have as a doctor.
Yeah, she breaks that with everybody she meets. That's a doctor.
Yeah, she's very good at winning people over very quickly.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She kind of reminds me of Dana Sue Gray in that instance. You know, like worked in the health field, and like everyone she met, she kind of put her little charm on, her little spell. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Not that she's poisoning people or anything. I'm just saying.
Right. The fact that she moved so much makes you kind of believe that she really was afraid, that she was not necessarily perpetrating this against herself.
Right.
Like, it seemed like she did everything she could to get away from this situation. The police, at a certain point, decided that she was sick mentally and that she was doing this to herself, and that, you know, they stopped really investigating this stuff as much as they should have. And that may be why she just kept moving. She's like, the police aren't helping me. No one's helping me. What am I supposed to do?
Right. Only thing I can do is hide.
Yeah.
But she's still tied to her career, her job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She refuses to completely go into hiding and not live her life.
Right. Which
she's still
can't
at this
blame
time
that.
going out
Can't
walking
blame
her
for
dog alone at night and things like that. That's another thing that points people in the direction of like, why would she do that if she was so afraid? Like,
that. Yeah. Oh no, a lot of
but
people
if you're
think
being
if they have
tormented
their
in your
dog-
own home constantly, I'd almost feel safer outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because
Like when you're watching a movie, a horror movie, it's like the people run upstairs in their own home. You're like, get out of here! Like,
yeah, it's like, why are you running upstairs? You can't jump out the
my
window.
phone
up
lines
there.
are being cut. Like I'm being strangled in my own garage. Like I'd feel safer outside too. At least there's people that could help me if I need help.
Yeah, exactly. Go run, scream knock at a door or somebody. Shit, there's got to be somebody you can get attention.
So on April 14th, 1983, the phone calls started happening again. In late April 1983, she would move for a fourth time. And then June through July 1983, she would visit her brother in Indonesia, and Roy Makepeace would pay for the trip. He's still so involved. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. He's really obsessed with her.
He's still trying to win her over, it seems.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Still
he
taking
is.
her out to dinner. He's paying for trips now. Like he's showing up and protecting her supposedly outside of her home.
Yeah,
And these things we know are true. Like this isn't like the police witnessed him outside of her home. This isn't something that she just said or whatever. Like
Right.
It's legit.
Oh yeah, he's still heavily involved in her life, and that's just suspect at this point.
Yeah. On August 22nd, 1983, letters began arriving at Cindy's work. One of them reading, "You're dead, cunt." Then on
Okay.
October 15th, 1983, a strangled cat was found in Cindy's garden with a note attached, "You're next."
Whoa.
That's wild, man. That's
Yeah.
wild to think that, you know, she may have done that herself, like strangled the cat just to get people to believe that she was being tormented.
Uh-huh.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, you think I don't know,
This
man.
happens more than once, by the way. There's multiple dead cats in this story.
Oh, really? Did she have a cat problem at her house?
I don't know. I'm guessing they were just like neighbors' cats.
I would like to know
I don't
how.
think it was
I would
cat.
like to know
She had
how.
a dog. I don't think she had any cats.
Okay, I was about to say I'd like to know how she felt about cats. Did she hate cats? Because
It's possible.
yeah, it is possible.
We never found a strangled dog, and we know she had a dog. We know she was a dog person. Doesn't necessarily mean she hated cats, but
That's right. That's right. Maybe she just didn't
her
want them
dog
in
was never
house.
harmed, coincidentally. After all this stuff, the break-ins, all of the tormenting, dead cats found, her dog was a little, like, toy poodle type dog, I believe. Very
Oh.
small
Well, that's
dog and
why.
was never harmed.
That's why the dog was not a threat. If she had like a pit bull or like a German Shepherd or a Doberman or some shit.
Or
Hey.
it was her doing this, and that's why she obviously wouldn't harm her own dog.
Yeah, true
She'd kill a neighbor's cat instead.
True that.
Once again, two sides to the coin.
That's true. That's true. Because you would think because the dog is so small, it's an easy target if you really wanted to scare her. And you've already
if you want to torment
Yeah.
her, if you really are committed to just making her life hell, you'd kill her dog.
Yeah, why not kill her dog? It's just a little toy poodle, right? If you're really that sadistic and you've already been inside, you've already slashed pillows, you've attacked her in her garage, why can't you get it? You could get it.
Yep. You've left her on death's door already.
That's right.
But yet you let her, her little dog live, but you're willing to kill other animals. So that's one part that I just find it hard to believe.
Yeah, that's strange.
In late October 1983, someone destroyed another thing that was close to Cindy, her garden. She insisted that Roy Makepeace wouldn't have done this. However, 5 years later, in a journal, she had a journal that she kept. She did suspect her ex-husband because he had destroyed the garden, her garden, years prior when they were together. That's some like messed up
would
shit
he
to
do
to
it
your
or
partner.
would he
to do
not?
to your wife, like she loves her garden and you destroy that while you're married to her, like
I just don't
that
get
just
her
says something
alibi,
about
though.
a person.
I just don't get this whole thing. It's like, oh, she insists that Roy wouldn't do it, but he did do it once.
But she didn't admit that till 5 years later when she was convinced at that point that he had been doing this. At the moment we're in 1983, she's still not wanting to believe that Roy is doing this.
I got you. But she's saying that he destroyed their garden once while they were married, though.
Yes. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So 1983 is after they were married.
Yep.
So if she's telling the truth, then he already had destroyed the garden once. Or maybe she just makes all that up 5 years later, like you say, just to add more evidence to
Once
him.
again, this fucking case will drive you mad.
Yes, it's already getting there.
You're going back and forth. You're like, it's obviously Roy, and then you're like, wait, it's definitely Cindy doing this. Like, you're just back and forth. But what if it's a third party?
Right? Yeah. It just doesn't seem like it's a third party. It just seems too focused. It's one of these two.
Yeah. What would be the motive for just some random person to torment? Like, if you wanted to kill her, you could have killed her so many times now.
Right.
This is such a personal thing. Like they say, like crimes of passion. Like this is like attacks of passion here. This is someone who cares about Cindy enough to want to torment her, I suppose. Like it's not a stranger.
Yes, exactly. They want her, and they've honed in on her specifically.
Yeah. So in November of 1983, McBride, the constable, finds another note on Cindy's porch. 4 days later, he finds another strangled cat and a cat that was hit by a car. He convinces Cindy to hire his friend, a private investigator named Ozzy Caban, and her phone lines were cut around the same time again. So just nonstop with the cats and the phone lines being cut.
Yeah.
On January 30th, 1984, at 6 p.m., Cindy calls Ozzy for help. 15 minutes later, he kicks in her door and finds Cindy on the floor. She was in the hallway. I think she was face up, and a paring knife stabbed through her left hand with a note attached. A black stocking was knotted and tied tightly around her neck once again, and she had been hit on the head. There was like a bruise and like a lump on her head. Mm-hmm. There was a needle mark in her right arm, but no substances were found in her system. And Cindy said she couldn't remember anything about the attack, but there are still no clues or strong suspects other than Roy Makepeace. Another serious attack where she was strangled with a stocking and discovered just in time.
Also, the knife through the hand, through the note, into the floor. Bro, you think someone would really do that to themselves? That's trying to... what point are you trying to make?
That's pretty next level, right?
That's got to hurt like a motherfucker. You know how much nerves you have in your hands?
Yeah.
I mean, right through all those bones and shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. When I saw that, I was like, I just don't know how somebody could do this to themselves.
I want to say it wasn't like through the center of her hand. It was like on the, if I remember right, it was like through the skin on the side of her hand. I don't know.
Well,
either way, you're really going to extreme lengths if you're doing this to yourself.
Her hand was pinned to the floor,
believe you.
One way or another, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that's pretty brutal. Unless she had some sort of, maybe she gave herself some Novocaine. Maybe that was the shot in the arm. Maybe it was like some kind of numbing solution. You'll never know. Maybe she numbed her right. And it is funny that she was probably right-handed and her left hand was stuck to the ground.
But also, what is the point? I don't understand why you leave her in this condition to be found. Like you're trying to get other people to see that you've done this. Mm-hmm. When you've already had her, like you got her there. You could kill her. You could do whatever you want. She's unconscious, and you leave her to be displayed alive. I just don't get the motive here.
Or maybe they thought, or maybe he heard the guy coming. Maybe he heard the detective pull up, or the Ozzy. What's his name? He was a private investigator.
Yeah.
Maybe he heard Ozzy pull up or knew that she had made the call to him. Who knows? Who knows, man? This is such a weird case.
Yeah. Then on February 14th, 1984, Roy Makepeace is questioned for almost 6 hours by police. He claims to be as baffled by the incidents as Cindy, but he does offer up a theory that Cindy's work with troubled children has angered a family with ties to organized crime. So he's still sticking with the mob thing. Mm-hmm. You know, that's another thing that makes people look guilty too, is when they have their own theories. Like, I think it's the mafia. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. That just seems like something that we've studied a lot, and like guilty people always offer up alternative theories.
Hell yeah, because they thought about it. They're already thinking about it. They're like, well, if I didn't do it,
thinking about how they're going to answer these questions, and they have these little stories, elaborate stories of what it could have been other than them, you know?
Exactly. They know how guilty they look, and they have to come up with something more convincing than I didn't do it. So they've been doing some thinking.
Yep. Then in the summer of 1984, the harassment intensified. Phone calls at Cindy's home and work, phone lines cut, broken windows. We would venture into arson very soon. There would be several fires being started in her homes as well. Mm-hmm. She's losing weight and withdraws from colleagues during work hours. So she's no longer that bubbly, fun person to work with. She's getting very reserved and seemingly depressed while at work.
Yeah, understandably so.
Oh, yeah. On June 18th, 1984, Cindy triggered the personal alarm that Ozzy gave her after finding the back door partially open. Inside the house, Ozzy found a sexually explicit birthday note and a Rothman cigarette butt, which was not Cindy's brand. She was a cigarette smoker, but she didn't smoke that brand. Okay. Cindy's small dog, Heidi, had been tied to the kitchen table with the same type of string that was used to strangle the cats and beaten to the point of bruising. I don't remember that part, but damn. So the dog was harmed, not killed, but... So she was. Now you have to believe that she was willing to go to the lengths to at least severely hurt her own dog.
Yeah, if you believe she did this, you have to believe that. And you got to think her dog is probably one of her only forms of security. It's probably like a little alarm system.
Yeah, if only the dog could freaking talk, right? We would get to the bottom of this shit.
We need a Doolittle. We need somebody in here.
Like that episode of Black Mirror where they're able to attach the probes to animals and like retract their memories and put them on screen. Like we need that. Like that episode Crocodile.
Yeah, man. We need everybody to just go ahead and have those Zen eyes for now, you know. We can just take everybody's memories.
Yeah. So then in late June, early July 1984, a fourth strangled cat is found dead. At what point are you like, okay, I get it with the cats? Like,
yeah.
Why are you still doing this?
I know, right? It does seem absurd. It seems so petty. It seems like if
it's like either kill me or like enough with the cats already.
Yeah,
kill me or don't. I don't understand where this is going.
That's how you just go out in your backyard. Just kill me already. What is?
I was scared after the first cat you killed, but after the third one, I'm just like annoyed now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems petty, doesn't it? It seems like if someone is really trying to move forward and scare her and is really getting a kick out of this, I feel like they would get more creative. I feel like
how many threats can you do without just following through? It's like you tell me you're going to punch me like 50 times over the course of 5 years. I'm like, are you ever going to do it?
Right. Eventually, it kind of loses its sting.
Yeah.
Right. You think, but I think with Cindy, it really was affecting her more and more, though. You know, she it just kept tearing her apart. It was destroying her slowly, and maybe this is what they wanted to do. So they just kept buying time.
Yeah.
I don't know. But she was falling apart.
This person could have intentionally been trying to drive her mad, drive her into drug addiction until she eventually took her own life. And then they couldn't be blamed for it.
And the more mad that they drive her, the less sleep that she gets, the weaker she gets, the less she wants to eat, the thinner she gets, the weaker she gets, the easier she is as a victim.
Yeah.
Over and over. You know?
Very well put. Yeah.
Summer is upon us if you haven't noticed, and the world seems to be slowly returning to normal. I'm looking forward to cookouts with friends and spending time with family. Nothing like that summer feeling. But I got a life hack for you. Best Fiends makes it like summertime in your brain all the time. Best Fiends is a matching puzzle game that, if I'm honest, I'm downright obsessed with. It makes time fly and it's free to download. And with thousands of puzzles to solve, there's something new every day. I'm currently on level 207, so I've got plenty more slug bashing to do. Best Fiends has some pretty cool features that keep the game interesting, like dynamite and converter squares to help you rack up big points. There's just so much to love about this game. Give it a try and tell me how much you love slinging stuff at slugs. Download the 5-star rated puzzle game Best Fiends free today on the App Store or Google Play. That's Best Friends without the R. Best Fiends.
So then on July 3rd, 1984 at 8:30 p.m., Cindy tells Ozzy, the private detective, that she'll be walking her dog Heidi in Dunbar Park. 3.5 hours later, Cindy knocks on a stranger's door and collapses. A black stocking is tied tightly around her neck yet again, and the last thing she remembers is being stopped on the street and asked for directions by a bearded man and a blonde woman in a dark green van. Of course.
Of course it's a van.
Can't have a case like this without a van.
Right.
There was 2 needle marks in her arm. So the last thing she remembers is being asked for directions by this couple here.
Mm-hmm.
There was 2 needle marks in her arm, but no drugs in her system aside from the prescribed antidepressants. She was confused and incoherent during questioning. Her eyes are puffy, and she had a bloody nose and a sore ankle. So this is something that I'm just connecting right now, is that she keeps being found with these needle marks, but no drugs in her system, which makes me wonder if she was doing this herself, if she would stab herself with a needle and not actually inject herself, but she would take pills, ingest them, but the needle was to make it look like the person drugged her to incapacitate her.
Right.
It just seems like a reoccurring thing.
Yeah, it does. And I'm guessing if she takes enough of these antidepressants, then she can pass out, or do you think she's choking herself to... I mean, how do you think she's becoming unconscious
taking
then?
strong painkillers and things like that could definitely make you pass out.
Okay. But she's saying there's no drugs... But like in this last one, it says there's no drugs in her system aside from antidepressants.
Yeah.
Is morphine an antidepressant?
Well, no, she wasn't out. We don't know for a fact that she did pass out. She says that's the last thing she remembered before she passed out. She walked up to a neighbor's door and knocked on the door. That's all we know.
That's right.
So you're going off of her story here that she got, assaulted or drugged by these people, but no one witnessed it. So.
Right. No green van. It's like, if these 2 people pull up in a green van, why didn't they take you? They have a van. I mean, that's the whole point of the van.
Right. Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's odd.
So we get some shocking revelations here around this time. In August 1984, at Ozzy, the private detective's suggestion, Cindy undergoes hypnosis to help her recall details of the most recent abduction. A hypnotist named Hal Booker is unable to recover any useful information during the session. However, on October 2nd, 1984, during her second hypnosis session, she states that she once witnessed a double murder. She cannot or will not give any details. Then on October 4th, 1984, Cindy and Ozzy confront the police about the lack of progress in the case, threatening to go to the press. The detectives, now led by Chris Bjord, explain that they simply had no leads in the case, and by this point, all of Cindy's coworkers and supporters had been investigated. Interpol had looked into Roy's background, and police had secretly staked out Cindy's house for days without seeing anything suspicious. As we mentioned, every time the police would stake out her house, nothing would happen, which is all. I guess it makes sense in a way. Like if this person is really surveying her house, even more so than the police, then they know when something's off. When a strange car is parked out front, it's probably surveillance.
Hell yeah.
So.
They're not going to show
also,
up.
you could, on the other side of the coin, you could say that she knew that she was being surveyed, so she just didn't do any of these acts against herself at this time. You could also say that.
Or you could also say that the attacker is maybe someone who's involved with police, or maybe a police officer himself.
Yep.
You don't never know. I mean, because then someone, that person would have inside knowledge to when the house is being watched, when it's not, what evidence to leave, what evidence not to leave. And it's not crazy, man. There's been some serial killer police officers, quite a few that we've studied. What D'Angelo?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, the Golden State Killer was a police officer.
Exactly. So I mean, it's not out of the realm. And I think a lot of these police officers who work on forces and do shit like this, I'd say, I don't know. I'm being bold here. I'm shooting from the hip, but I'd say 60 to 70% of them are never caught because of their connections.
Yeah.
So
I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that's crazy, because especially in small towns, small areas, small jurisdictions. It's all about who you know. And if you're a police officer and you're a well-respected police officer, who's not going to take your word for it, for whatever,
right?
Or even suspect you in the first place? It's a good cover-up. It could work.
Yeah. All right, so we get some more details. We briefly mentioned that she said during her first hypnosis session that she remembered witnessing a double murder. She wouldn't give any details at that time. Finally, in January of 1985, during her third hypnosis session, they were able to get more out of her on that. She revealed that in 1981, during a yacht trip with Roy on the Peacemaker yacht that he had, she witnessed him having murdered and dismembered a young couple on Thormanby Island. And the story behind this was that she had passed out. It was late at night, I believe, and they were like in this bay area. And she awoke to hearing a scream, and she came up onto the deck and yelled back out to see if she could get a response. Like, what was that? Roy wasn't there, and they were basically docked at like this cabin along the coast. And she gets out of the boat and goes over to the cabin, opens the door, and sees Roy standing there. This is her story, standing there, angry, and he had murdered this couple, and she's upset. He wrangles her in, sets her on the bed, and supposedly, he dismembers the body, and they don't talk much about it following this. It's a pretty far-fetched story. The detectives would later learn that Cindy's sister, Melanie, was also on that trip and noticed nothing unusual. And the police, they did have the Canadian Mounted Police go search this area where she said this cabin was. They couldn't find a cabin matching the description. They couldn't find a missing couple from that time. There's nothing else that linked this to reality at all.
Interesting. I was just about to say,
of course, Roy
man,
would
if
deny
she,
this.
Well, of course. But I was like, man, if she witnessed that, that would explain why Roy was so obsessed with keeping tabs on her. If she had witnessed something like that,
Oh, for sure.
he'd be like, whoa, I got to keep a close ass eye on her and even scare her and remind her of what I'm capable of so she doesn't tell anyone.
Right.
And maybe the fear of that coming out just got to him, and he finally did kill her because she couldn't handle it anymore. And she was
Well,
like,
at a certain
"Fuck
point,
this."
she calls him with a recorded line with the police listening in and tries to get him to, admit to having done that. She brings up, I remember what I did, and I'm going to have to tell the police or whatever, and he just doesn't say anything about it.
He doesn't say anything.
No. That's the story. The take on it I got was that he just ignored that and moved on to why did you think I'm doing this to you? Didn't talk about this double murder.
Interesting. I believe my response would be like, you need to stop making
The hell
shit
are you
up.
talking about?
You need to
Yeah,
stop
right.
that shit right now before I go to prison on some dumb shit. That's how
Right.
I would be responding
I'd
to
say
this.
you need to become a fiction writer because that's a crazy story you just wrote.
Exactly. I wouldn't just be like, okay, well, yeah, but anyways, why do you think it's me?
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't just.
Let's not gloss over this, Roy. this is a big fucking tale here.
We'll get back to the double murder later, Cindy, but
Right.
yeah, nah, Roy. That's weird, man. It's weird.
So then on June 21st, 1985, Cindy overdoses on pills in an apparent suicide attempt. She's released from the hospital in less than a week after promising to stay with her brother. She goes home alone instead. Then on June 27th, that's another thing, dude. There's a lot of times where she's hospitalized. She's even spends some time in a psychiatric center.
Right.
And they just keep releasing her. Like, I think she's making it clear she needs more treatment. She's struggling, and it seems like they're just in a hurry to get rid of her.
Huh. That is weird. But also, I mean, they're probably thinking, you're in the health field. You're in a psychiatric field. You can handle yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Clearly she can't. Like, either she's being
Clearly she
tormented
can't.
and she's not safe at home and it'd be better for her to be in a psychiatric center.
Right.
And, for a while until they can figure out what's going on. But they keep sending her home, and then these things are happening on like a weekly basis. She's calling and reporting to the police. These violent attacks are happening endlessly
Yeah.
over the course of years.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I know. It starts to look fishy. It starts to look like the boy who cried wolf. It really does. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah. Then on June 27th, 1985, her phone lines were cut again. She ignored the phone company's recommendation to have the wires encased in protective plastic.
She shouldn't have to do that, though. That's some shit.
She shouldn't have to, but she does have to at this point. How many times has it happened? She's had her phone lines cut. Even the phone company's like, look, we like taking your money to fix this, but it's don't you consider maybe protecting the wires a little bit so that we're not out here every week?
Right. Yeah. Do something. There's like some metal conduit, that you could run wires through as well. Probably be a little more expensive, but I guarantee you they'd have to bring a fucking sawzall to cut your phone lines.
Right.
I mean, it might be worth it at this point.
Then they'd probably just destroy your phone itself.
Yeah, probably. Or just cut the power altogether.
Yeah. Then in July of 1985, a week-long police stakeout comprised of 14 strike force officers is done on Cindy and Roy. The officers believe they observed no suspicious activity. So they stake him out for a while with 14 people and witness nothing. So it's not as though the police are not trying to figure out what's going on. They've interviewed people. They've given polygraph tests. They've staked out what's going on. They've definitely tried to get to the bottom of what's going on.
Yeah, that one detective even lived with her.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know, man. It's crazy.
Then in mid-July 1985, Cindy reports a silent phone call to the police. She is apparently unaware that the phone call was recorded by the phone company and that this recording indicated that she had dialed her own number. Not looking good on Cindy now, you know? It goes to go back and forth between Roy and Cindy.
Yeah.
It's a possibility that it's a little bit of both, that Roy was antagonizing her, messing with her, and possibly assaulting her, and that she was also simultaneously going a little bit mad herself.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it could be. Could be. I mean, at this point, I can't understand how she could stay sane if someone was harassing her.
It's just nuts how many incidents happen. On July 27th, 1985, she receives a cosmetic case full of rancid meat in the mail. On August 5th, 1985, she reports the first of 3 arsons at her home. A basement window was open, but there were no signs of forced entry. There was a small fire that had happened in her home. On August 6th, 1985, a second arson occurs. And detectives begin to suspect that Cindy isn't being completely honest with them and ask Detective Carol Halliday to review the case and render her opinion to it. Halliday concludes that Cindy is staging the incidents herself. This had been suspected as far back as the first attack in 1983, when they arranged for the first of 2 polygraph tests. Then on August 21st, a third arson occurs. Again, the open window doesn't appear to have been forced open, and dust and cobwebs have not been disturbed. Cindy would receive over $9,500 from her insurance company on this occurrence.
Yeah, that was the one where her parents were there. Remember, her parents were over for dinner, I think, on this third one. And they even remember the fire and everything. And but what's weird is, no, wait, they were woke up. They were woke up at night. So the parents had just went to bed. It was past midnight. And then she comes screaming and knocking on their door, telling them to get up. She heard something in the basement, and her dad was like, well, I heard that too. He goes downstairs. They open the door to the basement, and the whole basement's engulfed in flames.
Right.
So
and this might have been the occasion, too, where someone ran outside, and there was a man supposedly in his 30s that was standing out on the sidewalk, and they asked him to get help because their phone lines had been cut.
Yes, and he
they
ran.
Couldn't make the call to the fire department, and he just ran off instead of agreeing to help them.
Right. Okay, so here's something else, too, right? So the cops, this is what they say. They say Cindy had to have done it because the window was open, yeah, but no cobwebs, no dust was disturbed. Okay, cool. How does that stop someone from throwing a Molotov cocktail through the fucking window?
Right.
I mean, I could not touch anything.
Like gasoline-soaked rags that they lit up, something along those lines.
Anything.
Yeah.
And they said they heard a noise in the basement, before it happened. But then again, playing devil's advocate here, Cindy was still awake.
Gone down there and done it.
She was still awake.
Yep.
And her parents had just went to bed. They just went to bed, and now there's a fire. Really? What a coincidence! Especially if someone just threw something in. You mean what were they doing? Waiting for the upstairs lights to go off? But they knew Cindy was still awake. Odd. Super odd.
On December 1st, 1985, Cindy moved to the Vancouver suburb of Richmond, where she would eventually be found dead. On December 11th, 1985, she was found wandering by a pond near the university campus without shoes or a coat after going missing during her lunch break. A black stocking was knotted around her throat once again. There was a needle mark on her arm once again. Incoherent and confused, she was unable to remember anything about the incident yet again. Mm-hmm. Detective Halliday consulted psychiatrist Anthony Marcus, and Marcus rendered the opinion that Cindy engineered the harassment herself. Police declined to press criminal mischief charges against Cindy and agreed to enter her into therapy, which she does not do. Instead, she continues to do informal sessions with an unlicensed therapist named Connolly. For the first time since the incidents began, Cindy is surrounded by more doubters than believers at this point. Her parents, Ozzy Caban, and a handful of close friends remain convinced that someone was harassing her, but the police and other experts did not accept these reports as, someone actually harassing them anymore. They believe that Cindy was doing this to herself.
Right. They were They were really focusing in on Cindy at this time. They'd kind of just blocked out the idea that there was someone else involved at this point.
Yeah, and I honestly think for good reason at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be convinced the other way.
Yeah. On April 15th, 1986, yet another fire happens in Cindy's home. Arson investigators determined that the fire was started inside the house. Cindy accused Roy of starting the fire, unaware that he was in South Africa at the time. This one really hurt her cause here. This was the one where the neighbor, though, saw the man in his 30s standing near the house where the fire was started. So,
I mean, that doesn't
once
mean,
again,
though, that Roy didn't have connections, though, to other
Right.
people. He could have easily got somebody and been like, hey, because Roy was pretty wealthy. I mean,
what
he's
better
paying for
time
her
than
to
when you're in
travel.
another country to make it look like you're not the one doing all this, to just hire
Exactly.
someone to do this, pay
Yeah.
them money, and then you're in another country. You have a built-in alibi that makes her look crazy for saying you did it.
Right. This guy's obviously wealthy and established. He could have been like, hey, I'll pay you $5,000 to go throw a Molotov cocktail through this basement window and leave.
Yep.
I mean, it's that easy to set this up. I mean, this is 1986. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So at this point, Cindy would be evicted from the house. Obviously, I mean, there's a fire started every other week in
Right.
this home. I'd want her out of there too. Whether it was
seriously.
her or someone else doing it, I'd be like, you're just a fire waiting to happen here.
Yeah, either way, you're fire bait. You got to go.
Yeah. So she was depressed and suicidal at this point and given a 6-month leave of absence from work. In April of 1986, one therapist, on therapist Connolly's advice, Doug Hack, committed Cindy to St. Paul's Hospital, where a psychologist reviewed Cindy's file and classified the attacks and arsons as psychotic behavior on the part of Cindy. Dr. Soon Moo and psychologist Ken Durkole reached the same conclusion. So several mental health experts have come to the conclusion that Cindy had been doing this to herself. Psychiatrist Wesley Friesen believed that Connolly's insistence in the harassment was real, hampered by Cindy's treatment, and consider it possible that Cindy could kill herself and stage it to look like a murder so that Roy Makepeace would be blamed. Connolly himself concedes that this is a possibility.
Whoa.
So even the person that was close to her started to believe that this was possible. On July 15th, 1986, she would be released from the psychiatric ward and start therapy with Dr. Friesen, and she showed great improvement throughout that summer. And she would buy a house that fall in September of 1986 in Richmond. However, by October of 1986, the harassment had seemingly stopped, and she changed her last name to James after finally finalizing her divorce from Roy Makepeace. Seems like she's on the right path now. She's gotten help. She's got a new place. She's trying to move on. I think officially ending it with Roy was a chance for a fresh start.
Yes.
And changing her last name. Well, she didn't even go to her maiden last name. She chose James. She just felt like it was a complete fresh start.
Right.
Because her maiden name would have been Hack. Then on November 1986, Cindy is fired from the Blenheim house for poor work performance. She had worked there since 1975. It's a blow to her as well, of course. And she'd loved working with children. However, she got back on her feet by taking refresher courses in nursing, and she would ultimately be hired at Richmond General Hospital in August of 1987. So she gets back on her feet, gets another job working in the medical field. But in late August 1987, it starts again.
Oh, here we
she
go.
would report a broken window and a window pried open in her home. In the first week of September 1987, she reported a hole cut in a window. Then in February of 1988, she reported her basement door broken. On October 9th, Roy Makepeace allegedly got a visit at his apartment from 2 unknown men who waited outside his door for an hour. 2 days later, he got a message on his answering machine with that same voice that Cindy had been getting calls from, that raspy, whispery voice, and it said, "Cindy dead meat soon." Another message the next day said, "Hey man, more smack, more downers, another grand after we waste the cunt, no more deal."
Oh.
Roy had these tapes recorded. He had them. And rather than give them to the police, he shared the tapes with his lawyer, who said that he should share them with police, but he refused to. And these tapes, they're available. You can hear the Cindy dead meat soon audio.
Dude,
It's out
why
there.
does this sound like people who are working for him, though? Like, just giving him updates. Like, hey, man, more smack. So, okay, so they want
Yes,
more smack
that's-
and more down. They want drugs from him and then another grand after they kill her. Or we're not
If I'm
dealing
being honest,
anymore.
I think it was. If I'm being honest, I believe it was Cindy that made these calls and these voicemails, and that's her idea, is trying to make it look like he's working with a group of people to terrorize her, rip off her drugs, and ultimately kill her. The voice has been actually listened to by experts, and they believe it to be it is a very close connection to Cindy's voice.
Really?
It actually sounds like a woman to me when I listen to it.
Okay.
It sounds like a woman trying to sound raspy like a man. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to hear it to understand. It'll be in the intro.
Interesting.
But on October 26, 1988, at midnight, Cindy triggered the alarm given to her by Ozzy Caban. He finds her in her garage, partially nude with a black stocking knotted around her neck, her hands and feet bound with another stocking. She says that she had been grabbed from behind while getting out of her car. She claimed there was 2 men. Cindy was nearly dead this time and was taken to the hospital where she had worked. She was briefly in a coma, and she would have ultimately slowly recover and was soon released. It's just amazing to me that just over and over again, I don't know what could be done.
What? How is she triggering this alarm too? You know, what is this? Is this like one of those like life alert things that they give to elderly people? What is this thing?
It was some sort of a radio, like a 2-way radio type of thing. I don't know.
I'm
Yeah, you'd think it would have to be on her person at all times if she keeps getting attacked and she's able to alert this thing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so you got attacked just getting out of your car in your garage immediately, and you had time to alert him and get him there.
Yep. It's always so convenient, right? That she's always found right as she's about to die.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet the perpetrator's gone. It's just always all too convenient.
It is. It really is. Ugh, it's not looking good.
If it happened once or twice, you know, I'd give her the benefit of the doubt. But it just happens so many times, and it's always so perfect that she's found, you know, on the verge of death. And like I said, the perpetrator's long gone. And I don't know. Man.
Yeah. Highly sus.
So on May 1989, Cindy tells Ozzy Caban that she wants to install an infrared system in the backyard so that she can shoot any intruders. She also tells him that she is, quote, ready to talk, implying that she has been withholding information. But of course, she would die soon after this, and this information would never be given. On May 26, 1989, she began a 5-day vacation from her job at Richmond General, where she does various errands, including buying a birthday gift for a friend's son and getting a makeover. When her friends from the Woodcocks arrive to play bridge with her at 10 p.m., her car was still gone. They find it in the parking lot of a local Safeway, and this begins her span of 2 weeks being missing before being found dead. They know that she had gone to the ATM in the parking lot and of this Safeway grocery store where her car was found, and they found the people that had used the ATM right before and after her and talked to them and asked if they had seen this woman. Mm-hmm. They said that they had seen her, that she was seen walking alone diagonally through the parking lot of the grocery store, and she'd apparently parked there, gone to the ATM, and then walked away from her car and never went back to her car, and before being missing for 2 weeks and ultimately being found perished later. While she was missing, Cindy's parents went through her home and found over 900 pills of various prescriptions, as well as needles, different intravenous paraphernalia for injecting yourself.
That doesn't look good.
No. And the pills, like, she didn't have prescriptions for all of these pills. There were so many different medications, and it's not clear how she obtained them. On June 8th, 1989, 2 weeks after her disappearance, was when the road worker found Cindy's body near the abandoned house. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, she had been, her feet and hands had been tied behind her back. There was the needle mark in her arm, and the autopsy revealed that she had died of an overdose. Mm-hmm. 8 different drugs were in her system at the time of her death, and her death would ultimately be determined by a jury to be an unknown event. The co-creator of Unsolved Mysteries, Dan Muir, has quotes about this. He says that she was tormented for 7 years and ended up dead. This has always been a real puzzler. It's really hard to believe that she could have taken the drugs, then also hogtied herself. I think we can rule out accident. As for the multiple personality claim, she says it's a theory.
Yeah, it is.
I know Ozzy Caban, the private investigator who worked for her for years, still believed that she was being stalked and that she was murdered. So the private investigator was fully on board, thinking that someone was tormenting her.
Well, I mean, I don't know. He did find the cigarette, right? That wasn't hers, but I mean, she could have easily gotten a different brand of cigarette or borrowed a cigarette from somebody and left it there. Mm-hmm. You know, was the cigarette tested? I mean, probably not.
You'd like to think that would be held onto and tested in in a few years when DNA was a little bit more advanced.
But they could have at least matched DNA. You know what I mean? They could have taken her DNA and just see if it matched. See if it was in her mouth, see if she smoked it at least. Right. I mean, that would be some real evidence right there. Or if it's somebody else, who the hell is it? It wasn't nobody that matched. I would test everyone that was in her life. You know what I'm saying? At the time, who else do you know that smokes? Let's test them. Mm-hmm. There's just so many things I feel like they could have done a little more thorough. But by that point, I just feel like they They weren't
They were
suspecting.
tired of being called out to her house every other day for
Right. They
these
weren't
incidents.
suspecting a culprit or someone on the outside at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Her family obviously didn't think that she was having any psychological issues. It's hard to imagine somebody inflicting that kind of pain when there's actually a knife going through their hand, like we
Yes.
talked about earlier. The big question is, who would keep this up for 7 years? As the co-creator of Unsolved Mysteries said, I don't think we're ever going to solve that one of who would keep this up for 7 years. Was it Cindy, really sick, perpetrating these against herself, consciously or unconsciously? Everyone that responded to these incidents said that she was legitimately petrified. Like it was either she was an unbelievable actor or actress, or she was legitimately scared. So it's possible. There's a lot of
Hey.
the brain is very complex. It's possible she could have done these things to herself while simultaneously believing that someone else was doing it to her.
What if?
Especially when you're on all of these different drugs.
Right. What if she's doing this to herself to blackmail Roy into giving her prescriptions that she's addicted to?
Oh man.
Did you think about that? And it would make
I never thought about the
messages-
addictive aspect of it from that angle, where it's like people do a lot of crazy stuff to get their hands on drugs,
Right. What if she was
And-
addicted to these and she was like, this is how I'm going to get them from you. If you don't give them to me, I'm going to
Or maybe
frame
not
you.
even Roy. If it, if somebody, some connection she had made through the medical field, being in it for so long,
Yeah.
playing the victim and using these as a reason to get more prescription drugs.
Yes. It just occurred to me. But it's a decent theory.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. No doubt.
An excerpt from Cindy's journal while she had been in St. Paul Psychiatric Unit 3 years prior to her death says, quote, I still feel that suicide is my best option in an unbearable situation. And as soon as I get out of here, I will carry out my plan.
Ooh. That's
Crazy to
damning.
think they let her out so quickly when that was in her journal.
Yeah, did they not read it?
Right.
You're not giving psychiatric patients private journals, are you? And then not reading them. I mean, it's kind of the point. That's some damning information. I didn't know about this little excerpt from this journal.
Yeah. What are you thinking?
God, dude, I don't know. It's hard to think that someone would keep this up for 7 years.
I feel like
Maybe
she's the
she was
common
actually
denominator. Like
crazy.
it's just you would have caught the perpetrator in the act. One of the you had so many chances.
She's
You know what I mean?
schizophrenic,
Like,
right?
I don't know exactly what disorder I would label it as. I'm no expert in the mental health field, but
Right. But I mean,
I
just
think
by
she-
definition, I think losing touch with reality, thinking that
Yeah.
you're some other person, thinking that these other people are involved, or making you do these to yourself, I feel like it's some form of paranoid schizophrenia, something along those lines. And whether she was driven to that by suppressed childhood trauma or from these medications that maybe she got addicted to. You know what I'm saying? Like
I
I'm
can
sure-
say, regardless whether she was doing these acts to herself or not, I feel sorry. I feel bad for Cindy James. She was
Absolutely.
a victim of either herself or of someone perpetrating these acts against her. I think it's a tragic event, regardless.
Absolutely. She's
is no life
still the
to
victim.
live.
Whether she
Yeah,
did
this
it
is no
to
life
herself,
to live. Whether she was
Yeah.
doing it herself or she was being tormented by someone else, this is definitely no fun for anybody.
No doubt. She didn't gain anything from this. And maybe she thought she would at the beginning. I don't know. I don't even think that. I don't even get that vibe from her. I don't even get the vibe that, like my theory earlier, I'm just shooting off the wall, like from the hip, because I don't know. But it's obvious that she was a victim. And like you said, like the witnesses said, I mean, she seemed like she was acting pretty damn good. She was definitely authentically afraid,
Yeah.
But of who?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I know I'm authentically afraid of body odor. And
Yes,
one way to
bro.
solve that is, oh my Gaia.
It is. It is. And guys, you should all be afraid of body odor during the summer, especially the scorching summer that we're having this year.
Yes.
But don't worry,
There's
guys.
definitely global warming going on in my pits.
Yes, no doubt. There's global warming going on in everyone's pits right now. Over 100 degrees in the Pacific Northwest. I hope you guys are okay out there. Stay cool. Get you a swamp cooler, whatever the hell you got to do. But in the meantime, Get you some Oh My Gaia. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And there's tons of scents to choose from, guys, that is way better than your natural body odor scent. You know, no offense, but you could get vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, as one of my personal favorites. I'm wearing that today. Coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber. We have our very own scent called True Crime Pine, barbershop, pear. There's new scents being added all the time, guys. But again, like I said, if you guys don't know where to start, check out True Crime Pine. It was made just for your guys, True Crime Guys. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper for 15% off your order. That's CREEPER for 15% off your order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. Guys, don't hesitate. There's also beard oils, scented oils, and also incense that are amazing. You guys cannot beat the prices and the quality of this all-natural deodorant and scent company. You won't regret it, guys. Put some Oh My Gaia in your pits.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to take a minute to thank everybody who's gone and rated and reviewed the show. Give a couple special shout-outs. We've owed a shout-out to Roland for a while. I keep forgetting to do it. So if you're still listening, Roland, big shout-out to Roland. Apparently we stole a joke from Roland a while back, and we didn't even realize it. But we just parroted something that we'd had a conversation with him on Instagram about. He said, great show this week, kind of disappointed at the end of the shout-outs. You guys, this episode, you guys talked about how many could have been serial killers that Aileen Wuornos picked up. You know, how many of those guys that she picked up could have actually ended up being serial killers that may have killed her. Anyways, apparently we had talked about that with him. And so we may have unconsciously stole that talking point or whatever, that discussion. But either way, Roland, definitely better late than never on the shout out, but yeah,
no
big
doubt.
Thanks to all the support, Roland.
Absolutely.
Then we got people who've gone and rated and reviewed the show on iTunes. I want to say thank you to Lori Ray. Says the music intro songs are amazing. I may have done a shout out last time actually, but you get a double. Is it so enjoyable insight into the cases outside of the usual box? Well worth Patreon pricing. Love TCG. Thank you, Lori Ray in the U.S. Then we got Shell ZYJ. In the U.S. says, one of the best true crime podcasts. I love listening to you guys. 5 stars. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we got Ray says, what was that?
Oh, I was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Then we got Ray says in the U.S. says, love you guys. Recently took a 4-hour flight and you guys kept me entertained. Thanks. Thank you, Ray says. Then we got Gay GJ Sir B F SK in the U.S. said, they crack me up. I recently came across these guys and I'm so glad I did. They have some good stories that I don't hear from other podcasts. I'd love to see them become as big as True Crime Garage, even if you thought they was TCG. Haha. Nice.
Right on, guys.
And we got one more. We got Silence972 in the U.S. says, great show. Just discovered this podcast. Have now subscribed and plan to binge the series. These guys have a great dynamic. Thank you, Silence972. And don't keep the silence, buddy.
Right on.
What else we got? Patreon. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/truecrimeguys. $2 a month get you access to our once a month premium Patreon exclusive episode, which is only heard by patron members. $2 a month gets you in on that party. If you want to bump up and get another show where me and Michael just hang out and shoot the shit called Just the Banter, we answer questions from listeners and we just hang out and you get to learn a little bit more about us. And we're a little bit more goofy on there. That's $5 a month, get you access to that. And that's every week we put out that show on Friday.
That's right.
And we put it out right after we record it too. It's very fresh.
Yeah. It's usually about Friday evening sometime, I guess if you're East Coast time. Usually Friday around 7, 8 o'clock p.m. East Coast.
So with us having recorded it just like 3 hours prior.
Exactly. So you guys get a nice fresh take and you get we usually put up a post on Patreon on Thursday asking for any type of questions, comments, would you rathers, whatever you guys want to hear us talk about. And then we immediately answer all those questions, every single one, on the Just the Banter the very next day. So it's kind of a cool turnaround. It's a great way to interact with us as hosts, and it's a great way for us to get to know you guys a little bit better. So Just the Banter is one of my favorite things we do on the show, man.
Yeah, and on that $5 tier, you also get the very prestigious gold Creep Van sticker, which I need to send out. I'm a little bit behind. If you haven't gotten yours yet and you became a $5 patron within the last month or so, hang in there. It will be coming, I promise.
Very prestigious. It's worth it, guys. It's worth it.
Yes.
It will immediately up the value of whatever you put it on. So just hang in there.
Yep. Check out our other show, Strange and Unexplained.
That's right.
This
Strange
is the type
and
of case
Unexplained.
that we would typically cover on Strange and Unexplained. Michael, I'm sure you're a little bummed that
No, it's good. It's good. This has been a
this
great
has Strange and
episode.
Unexplained written all over it, though, doesn't it?
It
It's
does,
crazy.
but I'm glad that I got to discuss it with you, though. See,
That's true.
this
There's
is one
definitely
of
a lot
those.
more banter back and forth with this
Yes,
than
this-
being on Strange and Unexplained.
This is one of those cases that where I would have covered it on Strange Unexplained, and then I would have heard your synopsis, and I would have been like, I wish Lauren was here because I want to talk to him about why he thought that or this or that, and I actually got to do that in this case, so that was much cooler. But yeah, Strange and Unexplained, wherever you guys listen, we cover mostly unsolved, strange circumstances, missing persons, cults, even some supernatural stuff. So Strange and Unexplained, wherever you listen, guys, you'll see the old dinosaur skeleton T-Rex head on the logo. It looks a lot like True Crime Guys logo. If you search True Crime Guys in your podcast player, you should be able to find it. And then there's also a Patreon for Strange and Unexplained as well, patreon.com/S&U podcast for even more True Crime Guys content. There's another show I do every Monday called Strange Shorts, as well as the once a month exclusive, Patreon exclusive that's on the $5 tier called Sandu Stories, where it is a podcast where it's more like an old school radio show. It flows like a story. You're being told a story with voice actors and sound effects. This week, I think I'm going to have the most voices that I've ever had. I think there's 4 or 5 different voices. One of them you may recognize from another podcast that we actually played a promo for at the beginning of this episode. Excuse me, that's illegal.
Oh, baby.
That's right, Mr. Leroy Luna. You're going to
What?
hear on the next Sandu Stories. That's right.
Are you telling me we got somebody famous on that show?
Yes, we. Well, we always have you. I mean, come on. What are you talking about? But yeah, we're gonna have Leroy Luna as well, co-starring alongside Lauren and some other voice actors, and of course myself as your narrator for this week's Sandu Stories. So I'm super excited.
Are you not entertained?
Right? Come on, guys! It comes out tomorrow. So when you're hearing this.
Beautiful. All right. Is that enough? That's enough. All right. I mean, check us out on all social media at True Crime Guys everywhere.
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that bull crap.
That's right.
And we have merch. There's links below. There's links to our sources for this episode below. There's links to all of the crap that you either want to, support or buy if you want to.
That's right. Guys, check out
below.
the first, I think the first link right after the description. I always put the link to our link tree. Click on that link tree, guys, and you'll see everything laid out perfect. Everything in True Crime Guys Productions that you could ever want to check out. We're on YouTube. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. Help us
My
out there.
OnlyFans is on there.
That's right.
There's
See,
a little bit of everything.
That's a little bit. Oh, hey, go check out our Spotify album, True Crime Guys Killer Mixtape. It's out wherever you listen to music, YouTube Music, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, whatever, all the places, TikTok. Go check out True Crime Guys Killer Mixtape. So there's this 11-song album out that is made from our intros of various episodes. So if you're a fan of the intros, go check those out, guys.
Do it.
And that's it. I think that's it. I think we're good.
All right. See y'all next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.